Dillian Whyte is pissed off that Alexander Usyk has become the mandatory heavyweight without a fight at heavyweight. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also subscribe to the channel. Shout out to Talk Sport. They have an exclusive interview link in the description with Mr. Dillian Whyte, and he's upset. We'll talk about it because the WBO has installed Alexander Usyk, former cruiserweight undisputed, and they've placed him as the WBO mandatory for the winner of Ruiz versus Joshua. And he hasn't even had a fight at heavyweight. I did videos about that, so I'm not going to spend too much time. And you see, it says it's a joke. Dillian Whyte has blasted the WBO after he was controversially denied a mandatory shot at winner of Joshua's rematch with Andy Ruiz. Despite being ranked as the WBO's #1 heavyweight contender for some time, the Brit was snubbed in favor of Alexander Usyk. The Ukrainian, who has never fought in the heavyweight division, was the undisputed Cruiserweight Champion, which afforded him the super champion status with the WBO ahead of his move up. The sanctioning body rules that any super champion immediately becomes the mandatory challenger when they move up to a new division, which means Whyte's long wait for a title shot will continue, as his relationship with the WBO has now reached a boiling point. Quote, "If I say what I really feel, these things, I might get removed from the rankings," Dillian Whyte told Talk Sport. I start saying stuff and they send me emails and letters saying I can't say these things and it's disrespectful. But the fact that they're disrespecting me constantly doesn't mean anything. Boxing's full of shit, basically, and we see it time and time again. It's a joke. Usyk pulled out of the Carlos Takam fight. These guys are jokers. It is what it is. Ruiz is the current WBO champion after a stunning victory over Joshua. The news comes as an unwelcome distraction for Whyte, who's currently preparing for Oscar Rivas. Body Snatcher makes his return July 20th and promises not to underestimate undefeated Rivas. I've got a big fight ahead of me. I just want to focus on that. Rivas is a tough challenger. He's coming to win, and he's undefeated. He's never lost before. Now, I got to give my thoughts. I 1000% disagree with Dillian Whyte, and I'll explain. And I've already explained, and I already told you guys this was coming. And once again, new media prevails, and new media, the information that I put out previously comes to pass. Now, on the outside, for those who don't know what's going on, yeah, it's easy to look at Dillian Whyte. He's a fun guy. He's a good fighter. He wants to fight, those types of things, and feel he's being wronged, and, the sanctioning bodies just won't give him a shot. And the reality, once you look deeper, or a person like myself who actually covers this stuff routinely, you'll realize that it was his own team that have placed him in this powerless type of position all across the board, right? And I believe it's him and his relationship and his partnership with Rematch Room and Eddie Hearns. And Eddie Hearns' main focus was Anthony Joshua. That was his cash cow. And that was the guy who was selling the most tickets. So all the focus was really on him, Joshua. Now with Joshua losing to Ruiz and being upset, and now being forced into an immediate rematch scenario to try to recoup what was lost, now Eddie Hearn has come to the realization, I'm assuming, since it happened and Ruiz beat Anthony Joshua, he's come to the realization that, man, if Joshua loses again, my cash cow has taken a major hit. This is like basically what he did with Kell Brook, ran him into the ground. Triple G loss, and then immediately after an Errol Spence loss. So in my opinion, it's forced him to think of his other fighters a bit more. And now he's trying to make up ground with Dillian Whyte. But the fact of the matter is Joshua was always a cash cow. So there was a level of security. There was that safety net. So the moves he made with Dillian Whyte, it was, just supplemental. It was just extra, and the moves he made was checkers, not chess. with Dillian Whyte's career, and I will explain. Make sure you guys smash the like button. So Dillian Whyte has been, on this pledge that, all the sanctioning bodies are out to get him, and he's waited 600 days with the WBC. And another reason why I blame Dillian Whyte, his team, and Eddie Hearns also, is because they keep speaking out against the sanctioning bodies that they are in hopes of getting these rulings for. So I don't really see that as being a smart decision. And I told you guys that. Like he just told you right here. He said, where did he say? He said, every time I do these videos, where is it? He said, if I say what I really feel about these things, I might get removed from the rankings. I start saying stuff and they send me emails and letters saying, hey, you can't say those things and it's disrespectful. So if a person keeps doing it, then, why would I feel sorry for him? If you have to know how to play the game. So you keep speaking out on the WBC and or Eddie Hearn speaking out on the WBC. And then when things don't go in your favor, you kind of wonder why. But to me, there's probably some correlation there. Like you could say it's right, you could say it's not right, whatever. But, speaking bad on the sanctioning bodies and they're sending you emails and saying, yo, you can't be saying that about us. You're trying to make us look bad like we're going against the grain. So that's just the simplest of points. But beyond that, Dillian Whyte, he's been offered several eliminators, final eliminators to get a title shot, right? And I have it pulled up on the screen. New media. Look, this is Reuters. Boxing, Pulev fumes at Dillian Whyte and Hearns after fights fell through. Bulgarian Kubrat Pulev was fuming at Dillian Whyte and his promoter Eddie Hearn on Friday after the announcement that the British boxer would fight recently dethroned WBO champion Joseph Parker instead of facing him in his native country of Bulgaria. So he had an opportunity to be in an IBF final eliminator for Joshua, now Andy Ruiz, because he beat him, for the winner of those belts. Pulev and Whyte were ordered in April by the International Boxing Federation, the IBF, to fight each other to decide the challenger for the IBF World Heavyweight title held at that time by Anthony Joshua. The Bulgarian said he was 95% sure that the fight would take place in Sofia in Bulgaria in August. I was expecting from Dillian Whyte and his team to run away from the fight, but I didn't expect him to be such bullshit artists, Pulev said on his official website. They are extreme manipulators and plain schizophrenics. I can't believe what I'm hearing. What a tricky way they choose to run from the fight with me in Bulgaria. So this whole article is about an IBF eliminator that was ordered that Dillian Whyte's team lost a purse bid for. And Kubrat Pulev, I guess some Epic Sports and Entertainment, who's backed by a Bulgarian billionaire or something, they won the purse bid. So they were going to stage the fight. This was a final eliminator ordered by the IBF, and they were going to stage the fight in Bulgaria, giving Kubrat Pulev the home field advantage, the hometown advantage. And then when Eddie Hearn and Dillian Whyte lost that purse bid, they pulled out of the IBF final eliminator and instead went in a different direction. And as you guys see, they fought Joseph Parker. So to me, that right there is a huge, in hindsight, blunder. Because, yeah, the Pulev fight might not have been as big or whatever, but it would have secured Dillian Whyte the shot and a mandatory slot with the IBF for Joshua, which is now Ruiz because he beat him. It would have secured him a mandatory positioning. But Eddie Hearn in rematch room and Dillian Whyte were more interested in double crossing Kubrat Pulev and his team because they didn't want to fight in Bulgaria for whatever reason. They didn't want to give him that advantage, or they didn't think, they didn't like the money or whatever. And they opted to try to sell box office pay-per-views against Joseph Parker. So they, instead of doing what long-term would have been better for Dillian Whyte's career, securing him a mandatory position, they were after the quick cash. and they put Dillian Whyte in with Joseph Parker coming off of a loss to Anthony Joshua, and they put him in the ring with him coming off of that loss. It was a war. Parker hurt Dillian Whyte in the 12th, and then Dillian Whyte hurt Parker, dropped him twice. It was really once, but they scored it as twice. And they didn't fight this man for the IBF Eliminator. So that's one final eliminator with the IBF that would have secured them if he beat Kubrat Pulev, would have secured him that mandatory shot at Andy Ruiz, his belts, or whoever wins Ruiz-Joshua. Exhibit B. I showed you Exhibit A. Dillian Whyte, Luis Ortiz eliminator ordered as WBC provides title status updates. And if we look at it, look at this date. Look, April 25th, 2018. Dillian Whyte, Luis Ortiz eliminator ordered by the WBC. So it says, when WBC President Mauricio Suleiman was busy on Tuesday as president of the organization, he issued several updates. The most significant was the fact that Keith Thurman, his injuries he had vacated. Here are some notable announcements. The organization offered a final heavyweight title elimination fight, an eliminator, between England's Dillian Whyte, 23-1, 17 knockouts, and Miami-based Cuban defector Luis King Kong Ortiz, 28-1, with 24 knockouts, for the right to become the division's second mandatory challenger behind Dominic Breazeale for the right to challenge titleist Deontay Wilder. Ortiz is coming off a highly competitive 10th round loss to Wilder. You see? A final heavyweight title elimination fight, right? To become the second mandatory. Now, how this comes into play is the first mandatory that we all knew about was Dominic Breazeale. He fought Eric Molina on the Wilder Stavern 2 undercard at the Barclays Center. I was there, and he was ordered as the mandatory. So just to fast forward to the future, Wilder just knocked him out in one round. Breazeale. Guess what? If Dillian Whyte fought and beat Luis Ortiz in the, say it with me, final eliminator, then he would be the mandatory right now. But Eddie Hearn and Dillian Whyte, once again, chose to do their own thing. They chose to fight Derek Chisora. And Dominic Breazeale even offered, which we could pull up, Dominic Breazeale even offered to fight Dillian Whyte. So that's multiple chances. Dominic Breazeale offers to fight Dillian Whyte. Let's see if that comes up. Let's see. Dillian Whyte and Dominic Breazeale open to heavyweight fight talks. That's not the actual one I was going for. Dillian. Look. Look, Sky Sports. This is something else. Dillian Whyte and Dominic Breazeale ordered to fight by the WBC. Look at the date, people. February. He didn't fight Dominic Breazeale. So they've had multiple opportunities. Oh, here it is. So here's another one. Once again, peep the dates. August 25th of last year, Dominic Breazeale would welcome a fight against Dillian Whyte. Now, this whole article, he said he's bound with the situation by the WBC and the silver belt, and I have the WBC mandatory. I only thought it was right for Dillian Whyte, him, and myself to get in the ring and square off as the fans would love to see. Right? So Dillian Whyte has had multiple opportunities to get to a title shot, but they chose not to do these things. They didn't do a final eliminator with Kubrat Pulev in the IBF because they didn't want to fight in Bulgaria. chose to fight Joseph Parker. They didn't fight Dominic Breazeale, who was the mandatory and ended up getting the Wilder fight and getting knocked out in 1 round, right? They didn't listen to the WBC, who said fight Luis Ortiz then. They said fight Luis Ortiz in a final eliminator. They didn't listen to it. And now they're acting like they've been wronged, and we've been waiting 600 days with the WBC, and then the WBO, they're doing this, and it's a joke, and, you know, how is Usyk rated over me and stuff like that. And it's like playing the role. It's like playing the role. Usyk, look at him. He has all the fucking belts. He has all the belts at Cruiserweight and the Muhammad Ali trophy from the World Boxing Super Series. The thing I don't understand about Dillian Whyte and Eddie Hearns is simply this. How is it that me, a reporter, and someone who's like on YouTube knows the sanctioning rules, and when it comes to Dillian Whyte and Eddie Hearn, they're acting oblivious to these things? For example, we know, as this article states, that the super champion has basically first dibs if they move up in weight. You know how we know? Aside from Usyk, we've seen this same thing happen with Terrence Crawford. Yeah, a guy who became undisputed before Usyk. Terrence Crawford had all the belts at 140 after he knocked out Julius Indongo, another fight that I covered in Lincoln, Nebraska. And the funny thing is, Dillian Whyte was at that fight because he fought on the undercard, and I seen him. So it's not nothing new. Like, old media is trapped. I'm telling you, Dillian Whyte fought on the card, the Indongo card. I seen him. I was there. Right? And this was another example of the WBO when Terrence Crawford moved up to welterweight because he was like, I've accomplished everything I needed at 140. You know, let me move up to 47. Give my body a rest from cutting weight. I'm moving up to 140 or 47. I was the undisputed champion at 40. Let's go. Right? When he moved up, who did he fight in his first fight? Oh, yeah, Jeff Horn, who was beating Pacquiao for the WBO championship. And Pacquiao beat Jesse Vargas to become the WBO champion. So it went from Jesse Vargas to Pacquiao, who beat Jesse Vargas, and then Jeff Horn had a controversial win over Pacquiao, so he was the WBO champion. So guess what? When the undisputed super champion that held the WBO belt fought at 47 in his first fight, he challenged for the WBO belt in the new division, held then by Jeff Horn, another fight that I covered, right? I was at that fight too. The Terrence Crawford Jeff Horn fight, and then he stops him. Now we have Terrence Crawford as the WBO champion. So, you know, upon further review and like actually looking at it, you at first you look and say, oh man, Dillian Whyte, he's just trying his best. But it's his team. They're making these moves, speaking out against sanctioning bodies. Doesn't really make sense. Not doing the IBF Pulev final eliminator, not doing the WBC when they're ordering you to fight Ortiz, when they're telling you to fight Breazeale, when Breazeale is stepping up, when Deontay Wilder says, yo, sign the PBC, it'll be so much easier and I'll fight you. Breazeale offered to fight, you know, Dillian Whyte. Luis Ortiz was down to fight Dillian Whyte, right? It just goes on and on and on. And instead, Dillian Whyte's team were fighting Joseph Parker, coming off of a loss. So I know after he lost, there was nobody that ordered that fight. And Joseph Parker was in negotiations to fight Brian Jennings. Dillian Whyte was in negotiations to fight Kubrat Pulev. My memory is tough. So Joseph Parker and Dillian Whyte confused Top Rank and Kubrat Pulev's people because one day they just woke up and guess what? Dillian Whyte was fighting Joseph Parker, and Top Rank thought Brian Jennings was going to fight Joseph Parker because they were in negotiations. Kubrat Pulev, again, this is why he was angry and did this. Pulev fumes at Dillian Whyte, interview, because he was like, what the hell? Because he thought he had a fight set up and he thought he was going to fight Dillian Whyte in Bulgaria. But they opted to go after pay-per-view and in a fight that didn't really put Dillian Whyte in any position of power or give him a mandatory slot. And now they're complaining that they don't have the title shots. It just doesn't make sense. No matter how much you like Dillian Whyte, or if you're from the UK, it doesn't make sense. You are not listening to any of the sanctioning body's orders. And then when it doesn't work out for you, you're lashing out at them and angry at them. But the craziest thing is this. Eddie Hearn offered to sue the WBC because they've been waiting 600 days. The craziest thing is this. These sanctioning bodies, the WBO, the IBF, and the WBC, they all have a paper trail of everything that I'm saying. Everything that I'm saying is a paper trail. You have ESPN articles. They probably have the templates and, you know, the contracts and the dates and timestamps and stuff like that. So the only person who doesn't have a paper trail of doing what they were supposed to is Eddie Hearn and Dillian Whyte. The paper trail will show that they pulled out of eliminators, that they didn't listen to the WBC. They didn't listen to the IBF, you know? And then as far as the WBO, like I said, the super champion, we know that's just the rule. You know, the WBO super champion, especially an undisputed guy like Terrence Crawford or Usyk, they're moving up. They got first dibs. But Dillian Whyte, through other sanctioning bodies, could have been in line for Deontay Wilder, Andy Ruiz-Joshua mandatory slot. But that wasn't the priority with Eddie Hearn because he was worried about Joshua so much. So really, Dillian Whyte, he has himself and his team to blame for this. They are the ones that put him in this position. You know, you can't get mad. How you gonna get mad at Usyk? Usyk, yeah, he was supposed to fight Takam, but he's injured. That's what they said. Look, and I did a video about this too. The WBO explains why Usyk is the mandatory. You know, so now Dillian Whyte is in a situation where, look at this picture. No belts on his arm. And then this man got all the belts. And then this is what we're arguing about. So to me, Dillian Whyte and Eddie Hearn don't really have a case because they made their own rules, Willie Beeman style. And now when Joshua loses, now they want to put focus. Oh, I want my fighter to have a title shot. And what's up with these sanctioning companies? It's not the sanctioning companies, it's y'all. Y'all should have listened to what they were asking, and Dillian Whyte would have had grounds to stand on, and he would have had a sure shot mandatory spot. End of story.
So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxingego, the future of boxing.